Okay, let me do this. Maybe I'll call it the Mark Zuckerberg update. Today, well, whatever the date is, I'll put it on the video. It's not just anger over me leaving Facebook, which I did today, meaning it's going to be inactive. But I want to give you a little insight. I learned a lot over these many years, and I read and watch a lot of technology, social media, and it's been very interesting to me to learn because I do a lot of these sites. There's been enough documentaries and uh, reports from media outlets and, New York Times and others that showed you that over time, it wasn't just a matter of Facebook primarily, but other social media sites. It wasn't just a matter that they were aware of the serious damage that they did, but they did it anyway. Now, this came out in a pretty famous documentary called The Social Dilemma, if you watch it. Now, what happened with me in the last few days is I decided to use all of Facebook's Instagram, WhatsApp, the page. I just started a new group, and I decided to do it because though there are a lot of other sites that are really advanced, there are a lot of Instagram sites that are much better than Instagram. On Instagram, links do not work. If you notice, I post links, but they don't work. But there are about 10 other great sites that technology and everything else, if you looked at them on my links to my sites, they are so much better. A lot of them are out of India. And the most recent one, if you look, is called People or Pepple, but People, P-E-P-U-L. Now, many of these you just use an app. They don't have a website, desktop site, but they're really advanced. Now, what happened was as the social media and Facebook, as they were, this might be one insight that I think people have not picked up on. When they realized that they did destructive things, and I'll give you an example. I won't title this Mark Zuckerberg is a murderer, but I'll tell you this. They did the statistics, particularly on the apps, Instagram, where people can change what they look like. And so the numbers of younger kids, adolescents, or uh, the effect it had on them to make themselves look different led to the rise of suicides in many young children over the past, not just recently, but the past 10 years of social media, primarily Facebook. They knew that. This is what's sad. They knew the statistics of the suicides were directly related to certain things that they did. And you would say, why didn't they not just shut them down at that point? Or why did they not just remove the ability to do live feed, which encouraged people to kill on Facebook live stream videos? And they still have live feed. And I said a long time ago, you need to remove that. They don't do it, and it's not just because of money. The whole social media addiction that we all in society deal with is the same thing takes place with Mark Zuckerberg and the leaders of various social media companies, meaning this, they can't stop. The goal might have been noble at a certain point, but what they want to do, if you will, is connect the world, and then they're highly competitive against each other. Microsoft, the history of Steve Jobs. I watched a lot of documentaries. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Mark Zuckerberg. I listened, watched a lot on these. So what's going on with them is it's not that they need the money. They're really not doing it for the money. That's what people miss. They're doing it because their addiction as CEOs of these companies is to beat out the other company. Now, they might believe that they had sincere intents at the beginning to connect the world or whatever, But then when they realized, for instance, the deaths of many kids, and you're talking about many, many thousands and thousands of kids who committed suicide as a direct result of social media, Facebook and Instagram. And you say, well, why didn't they stop it? That's why the addiction to be able, even if they implement tools that they feel are helpful, like, well, we're going to try to, and they made efforts, but then there came a point where you said, why don't they just shut the real damaging ones down? They just can't stop themselves. And so this is just the update of Facebook. My title at Mark Zuckerberg. But the sad thing about it is this. Mark Zuckerberg knew that some of the things that they implemented over these past many years with his sites would lead to the suicides of kids. Whereas if the sites did not exist, or even if they just took off the kids changing their images or took off live feed, that these people would not, many of the murders that were live feed, they did it. The part of their intent was it's going to be streamed live. So they knew that there would be the deaths of a lot of kids and people in general because of certain functions, and he wouldn't stop it. He wouldn't correct it. Now, I believe his intent probably is we're going to institute things to, lessen it. But the death of any, never mind the thousands, and you still went ahead with it, and you still have those functions on the sites. You should have gotten rid of those because it's the correlation of the kids that kill themselves directly related to the functions of Facebook and Instagram. Well, at that point, you say, let's get rid of that. Get rid of the kids changing their faces or things of that nature. Why don't they do it? The money? No. He wants to win. Not just him, but the others. What happened in my case was this. I decided to use the video function of Facebook, which was called Creator Studio. Facebook, if you look at my other sites, does not function well. Okay, it's one of the originals, so it's very clunky if you're going to use it. So in order for me to use the video aspect of Facebook, I had to switch to Creator Studio because I started with the other video format they had, then they changed it. It's another problem with sites. When they change too much, they're unstable. So they changed it. And so I said, I'm going to utilize it. And so I started uploading and posting Facebook videos to just stay with the site. And then they do these things as tests. Okay, I know this because they admit it. They run tests and they release a certain thing. So they wanted more people to use Meta Business, which is like a business app along with all the other apps that Facebook has, if you ever look on Google Play Store. And a few weeks ago, I just thought, well, I'm on everything else there is, so I'll just download that and I'll use it. But it doesn't function well. Well, now they had me as one of the users of it. So they ran a test. They started notifying people that did videos like myself that Creator tool will no longer be available after September 15th. And you'll be moved to the Meta Business app, which doesn't work at all. But they do it to see how many people will move over. Now, of course I knew that because they admit that before. So meaning if I never joined that particular Meta Business, which I did a few weeks ago, as explained, they would have not given me that notice. You're going to be removed from the Creator Studio to that thing. So I knew the time would come I would mess with it, and I wasted 2 hours today, which means we're done with that site because I have 121 sites and I can do them all. I can be on every one of them and post on every one of them in 1 hour. And that means if something takes more than a few minutes, I have to if something messed with me for 2 hours like this did, you're gone. Now, here's the difficulty. I knew they run tests like that. They admit that my Windows 11, I'm not on it yet because they run tests. They release it to the public, and then they get a lot of negative feedback. That's how they learn. Oh well, this is no good or that's no good. But here's the very sad thing about it. They did those tests with the kids who killed themselves. Meaning they knew ahead of time if you put things that are going to make kids feel bad about themselves, likes on Instagram or whatever, that the increase of suicide would go up in a certain younger age group of girls. They knew it. That's the criminal aspect of it. They knew, and they monitored how many kids killed themselves over a period of so many years when they institute a certain thing. Now, you might not have been aware that they knew that. And that's why I think that aspect of it is criminal. If you knew ahead of time, I'll quote one of the people that was involved in the movie of The Social Dilemma. He said, we knew it and we did it anyway. We knew how it would mess with the psyche of people in general, but with the younger kids and them killing themselves. Now, so when they ran a test on me, which this recent thing was a test, to see how it's going to function, how people are going to react. Okay, I get it. I'm an adult. I'm a male. But you did that with kids. And the reason they are not stopping, most are saying it's for financial gain. It's not for financial gain. Steve Jobs worked up until a few weeks before he died. He had enough money, but he was part of, these are like revolutionary guys, and they're part of it. And so they're the same addiction that the kids are having in general, society in general, they have as leaders to want to have to, who can have the global dominance. So the thing that's keeping them from making the changes or to not run tests, especially with the kids, it's not the money. Though scripture says money is the root of all evil. It's their desire to want to dominate. They have that same kind of thing. And they might feel that they are noble and that they would examine themselves and say, we just want to connect people and so forth. But that's why this test, that in my case caused me to leave this platform, that's why it really upsets me, because they did it with kids. And many of you might not be aware of that. And enough came out, you say, why doesn't somebody hold them accountable? Governments in general, as I speak, I won't give you updates, but it looks like the U.S. Embassy in Iraq is being overthrown right now, and they're going to do an evacuation. This would be another one, like somewhat of the debacle in Afghanistan. Governments in general don't have, they're like, we're entering into a time where there's a lot of instability. And so even though Facebook is being charged, Sheryl Sandberg, who is the CEO, this is so much manipulation. Let me talk a little bit, but it happens in the media a lot. Sheryl Sandberg, who was the lady CEO of Facebook, she quit a few months ago. And some of you might have read in the media, she quit because there were questions about her using the personal things of Facebook to prepare for her wedding. And she did not want to deal with it. It's sort of like the media said she didn't want to deal with some of the people thought, oh, you used something like that was a Facebook thing. That's not it. Facebook is being charged criminally in foreign countries for the Rwanda, the slaughter of a particular group of Muslims in another country. And these countries are charging them criminally to the point where if they win, they're charging them with genocide. And it's the Rohingya Muslims. And so that country, this is all documented. They're having legal proceedings to have Facebook be held accountable for genocide. Now, in some countries, that means if they can extradite you, you get executed. If they can extradite, you don't go to other countries when you have a charge like that on you. So did Ms. Sandberg quit because she had a little flack about using Facebook things for her wedding? Well, of course not. The writing on the wall is we have other countries, Mark, seeking to indict us on mass genocide murder, and they might want to hold us to an execution, meaning I don't know what the exact penalty would be. The odds of extraditing them and getting them over there. Well, that's the serious nature of why people are now looking at a lot of this. And so this is how media manipulates you. And they give you like a different thing. So it was just a test that I knew they were going to run on me. But what got me real mad is they ran this on kids, knowing the statistic. In a case like me and everybody else that's had to do the test, they're looking at the numbers of how many are going to leave Meta Business when they make the move from Creator Studio. And then they just run the analytics on it. And they do that. All the companies do that. That's how they know. They say, oh, look, too many people left Creator Studio so let's get rid of that. But when you did that with the kids, meaning how many certain adolescents are going to commit suicide when we institute, they did it with stuff like that. Meaning you have blood on your hands. And you can't stop it because you're addicted, Mark, or whoever, to the global, you want to be predominant. The link that I shared on Facebook, which that should be it, is a competitor of Facebook, and it's in Russia. It's called VK. But that site, if you compared it, you joined it, we have 8,000 friends on that one. That site functions better than Facebook. And I heard a documentary where Mark was mad. He gave the pronunciation of that thing, Vyantake, but it's VK. It's in Russia. And he was mad about that site. And now Russia has banned Facebook the last few months out of the country completely. So it's not just the test with me, though that gets me mad, but it's, I know you did it with kids. You did it with certain things that you would put out there, and how somebody can know ahead of time the number of kids that are going to kill themselves, young girls, because we have features that are going to cause them the rise in plastic surgery in the children. Ever since Instagram instituted that thing where you can change what you look like. And then it dealt deeply in the sense, many studies and documentaries are on this the last 5-7 years. So it dealt deeply with the psyche of the kids, knowing it would cause damage and deaths, and then they would rate how many died. How many of the multiple deaths are directly correlated to the functions that you instituted. And they know all that. And you would think, well, after that, John, wouldn't they just get away with it? Sure, they didn't. They can't stop. So this is a bigger question for society. I'll call this something like my message to Mark Zuckerberg. And he was on Joe Rogan the other night. I caught a few glimpses of it. And I find it arrogant that he's not dealt with any of these serious issues to the point where it stopped the harm to society in general or stopped the harm to kids in general. But you still are rolling out things. He's going to face him and Facebook. Like I said, that's why more than likely Sheryl Sandberg quit. And you had a lot of top people the last 8 months, by the way, if you're not familiar with it, chief financial officers, some of the media reports is, why are they all jumping ship? Well, that's why. Now they got a huge legal team at Facebook, but they realize they're being held accountable, genocide and other things that could carry with it the death penalty. And we're very arrogant in our country, and we think, well, that would prevent you from traveling abroad. You get an indictment like that on the genocide, and then that country, whatever one it is, if you go to another one and they have extradition thing, they'll try to get you. So that's why you had all these people jumping ship. It wasn't just because they wanted to get out before the stocks completely sank. They didn't want to face legal convictions that might say, we're going to hold Mark Zuckerberg and CEOs and everybody, that's upper the organization. So that's a little bit more you might not have been familiar with. So anyway, I knew they ran that test, and I don't have time. I felt me utilizing. It's not as Facebook is just not effective. If you looked at some of the other sites I'm on, many of you are not on them, I understand. They're so much more effective. I just started a brand new site in India. 2 days ago. It's called People. 2 days ago. So there's 11,000 connections in 2 days. Now, yes, I want to build too. I don't make money and I don't take money. But we want to get the word out. So now you have in 2 days a site called PEPUL, which the graphics are 100% better than Instagram. 11,000 in 2 days. Now I'm just saying, you have, better options. So let me post this real quick. This will have to go up to Facebook. Might be the last Facebook video because I'm not going to utilize Facebook. Or if I put it on YouTube, I'll just share it over to Facebook. So this is just the update for tonight on some of the things we were dealing with. Why I decided that it's time to shut that. And we just pray for all the things that are going on in the country being its own. And there's a lot of instability going on in the world. We're praying for peace, the Prince of Peace. We pray the righteous thing would be done. And people that were, should be held accountable if they actually implemented things that caused the deaths of so many children. I don't want to comment on a local death that took place, but somebody that knew the family, and it had to do with a lot that's going on in our society right now. And so I just want to say we speak a blessing. I hope, Zuckerberg, but that's what happened today. And that's what caused me to say we got to leave that, because I don't have time to mess with something like that. God bless everybody, and I'll see you in a while. I think we're done.